This is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. With your hosts, Brendan Spinner, Michael Burns, and Kyle Rose.
Well, hello and welcome to Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. I am Brandon Spinner alongside Michael Burns and Kyle Rhodes. Episode 1, boys. We've been talking about doing this for, it seems like 2, 3, 4 months. It is finally here. We're recording September 21st. For those of you who are just tuning in and listening, also thank you for listening to our first episode. But it's September 21st. Boys, what are we drinking tonight?
Well, I've been stuck on this Old Forester pick.
The single barrel select.
The single barrel strength. It's my go-to right now. I can't put it down.
It's so good. I've got an extra bottle that I'm afraid to crack open because it's too good. It is Wednesday, my dudes, and it's Weller Wednesday. So it's actually National Bourbon Heritage Month. You have a bourbon a day. I've got the calendar here. For those of you who are listening on podcasts, you can also find us on YouTube to search Barrels and Barrels. But so every day, Michael, Kyle's not a bourbon guy. Kyle actually doesn't really drink. So Kyle's our executive producer. He's going to keep the ship on the sea or the train on the rails. Car
on the road.
Yeah, the rig on the road. Whatever it is, Kyle's going to be the guy who steers everything the right direction. But it's National Bourbon Heritage Month or Bourbon Heritage Month. So all 30 days of September, the goal is to have a different dram, a different drink of bourbon. And since it's Wednesday, every Wednesday I'm doing a different Weller. This week I'm doing Sales Beverage World, Villa Park liquor store in the suburbs of Chicago. A pour of that foolproof bourbon.
So how many Wednesdays are there in September?
There are 4.
4. So you're gonna have the full proof.
That's what I had.
Special
week
reserve.
1 was the special reserve. Weller 12-year was week 2. And the final week, I think you're going to figure out what one it is.
I just wondered if it was going to be that white one behind you.
Yeah,
that you were going to have to open if there was five Wednesdays.
Nope. I would go find a separate pour somewhere else. But we are a bourbon podcast. We are a baseball podcast. But first, since it's our first podcast, I want to introduce everybody. Michael, we'll have with you go first. Tell us about yourself, where you're at, what you do.
Yeah, so I'm in Alabama, Huntsville, bigger city than anyone probably realizes. You hear Alabama and you think cow pastures and such, but you know we're rocket scientists down here. Used to live in Chicago, so that's why I got the Cubs. I'm a Chicago Cubs fan. And yeah, that's a quick spin right there, right, Brendan?
Yeah, well, yeah, the spin. Your dad, right?
What about my dad?
You are a dad.
Oh, I am a dad, right? Yes, I do have two. I have 2 little girls that I hate being away from. Bonnie and Josie. So I spend most of my time. I feel bad, scheduling stuff for myself to do on my own. But
yeah, like a podcast that we're going to be doing weekly.
Be quiet! Don't come in here.
So Michael's in Alabama. Kyle Rhodes, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I am here in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am also a girl dad, little Marietta. Currently working with Mr. Brandon Spinner for a local television station. I'm a more behind the scenes guy. Brandon is the personality. He looks good, but I make him look better.
He does.
Yeah, let's hear what Brandon's all about.
Okay, I'm Brandon Spinner. I am a meteorologist at the WCPO station. That is the ABC station in Cincinnati, Ohio. I technically reside in Kentucky, the land of bourbon, where there are more barrels of bourbon than people. Union, Kentucky. A lot of people ask me, like, hey, you live in Kentucky, but you work in Cincinnati? They don't realize that Cincinnati is right on the river, and the river splits Ohio and Kentucky. So actually New Riff is just across the river into Kentucky, but it's more so a Cincinnati distillery. But I do the weekend weather there, and then noon and 4 o'clock every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I met Kyle, obviously, at the station. Michael and I met when I worked in Huntsville, Alabama, down there. I'm also a girl dad, so that's one thing we got going for us, guys. We're 3 girl dads. We're all married, and all our wives start with A. So this is going to be an A+ forecast and an A+ podcast.
Yeah, right as me and Brandon really, started clicking with the Cubs and bourbon and getting our kids together, we got together, and then,
I moved.
He moved. Right there.
Yeah, it was literally I had my interview in Cincinnati, and that week was the Super Bowl that the Bengals played, and I went to Michael's house to watch the game, and I'm sitting there going, I might get a new job in Cincinnati, but I can't tell them yet. And that was 2 months into hanging out. But
I just hope we can make it through one Cubs season together. I can have someone to watch the Cubs with, because everybody down here is a Braves fan. So no one, unless they're playing, which we then can't get on TV.
Ironically, Michael and I were not planning this. We actually wore basically the same hat. We're both Cubs fans. Kyle's here, a Reds fan.
I am.
How'd you become a Reds fan?
Typical Cincinnati story, but I grew up watching games with my grandpa. It was watch the game on the TV muted and listen to Marty and Joe. So
Marty Brenneman,
just
one of the best
carry on that carry that tradition on now when I can, and hope to pass that along to baby girl.
Yeah. And Michael, you said you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. I didn't say that ahead of time, but I also grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Hence the Cubs fan, diehard, season ticket holder. This actually, I was just talking to a guy on Instagram. This will be the first year I haven't made it to Wrigley since 2003, I think.
You didn't go at all this year? I thought you did.
I went, and the game got rained out. It was a Friday game against the Mets right before the All-Star break. And just
call in sick next week and hop in the car. I'll be there next week.
I thought you did make it.
No, I haven't made it yet. I've gone to 4 Cubs games in Cincinnati, which is a really cool thing that I get to see the Cubs play in Cincinnati a lot. And we went to the game last night and saw the Reds lose to the Red Sox. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, being in a Major League Baseball city is a lot cooler than I ever thought it was going to be. Outside of living in the Chicago suburbs, you kind of take it for granted. Then you move away, and my job has taken me all over the place. So the first 3 stops didn't really have a major league team. We ended up having the Huntsville team, got the Madison team technically, because that's where it's at. But that's the shirt that Michael's rocking, or the jersey, the Rocket City Trash Pandas, the AA affiliate of the Anaheim Angels.
And they're actually in the playoffs tomorrow night.
Yeah. Is it tomorrow night?
Tomorrow night they're playing the Smokies for first round.
Oh,
and so
that's kind of, you gotta be kind of torn.
I am. The Pandas won game 1, so if the Pandas win, the Pandas won game 1, so if they win tomorrow night, they go to round 2. So
that's gonna eliminate the Smokies.
Yes.
All right.
So I don't know if I wear this and a Cubs hat, or if I just commit to one. I don't know. It'd be kind of cool for the local team to win.
Yeah. Well, it'd be cooler to go. And obviously, you can put out some content for Barrels and Barrels, the Bourbon and Baseball podcast.
I'll see what I can do.
But that is something you guys can look forward to down the road. We are hoping to do some baseball stadium tours, some distillery tours as we get a little older in our podcast. So those are a couple things you can look forward to. I'm sure Kyle can strum us a few chords with the guitars in the background there. Kyle, you shred, right?
I dabble.
You got 3 guitars in the background right there.
I dabble.
And there's 2 over here.
He's got an electric one. I know that, at least one of them.
I don't think the viewers can see, but here in Cincinnati, we have this big music festival called the Bunbury Music Festival, and I was very fortunate enough to play that in 2016.
How do you know you're old? You got to turn to figure out what year you did something.
I think it was more old that when I turned, I hurt my back. 2018. I was fortunate enough to play it in 2018.
Well, Major League Baseball season's winding down, but the 2 big stories, really. are two, I think, really cool stories. As Cubs fans, it's hard to talk about one of them, but I think the romanticism of baseball makes me root for it even more. But the first one I want to jump into is the big news. It'd be hard not to lead with it. Aaron Judge just did something that we're all in our 30s, right? Low 30s, younger
Yes.
30s. Aaron Judge has done something that we as humans have only seen done several times, like 3 or 4.
We've only seen it a few times. You made it sound like it's never happened. We've seen it several times.
Well, we saw it twice in 1998, and then Sammy did it another time, and then Barry's done it. But Aaron Judge hit his 60th last night. But what I think is the coolest part of this is he's got a chance for the Triple Crown.
He took the lead for the average last night, I think, with his 60th even. Not with the home run necessarily, but...
Right. So, will he get the Triple Crown? Do you think yes or no?
I think he will. He does lead the AL, but batting average, he does not lead the MLB. From what I saw, Freddie Freeman is at the top of that, but everything else he is at the top 4 when it comes to the Triple Crown race.
And he's got Xander by 3 points. He's got a 318 batting average. Xander's got a 315 batting average as of this recording. So that's at 9 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday the 21st. But 60 home runs. Boys, did you think that was like after the steroid era, after Barry did it, I didn't think we'd ever see that again, or at least this close in proximity.
I mean...
So
go ahead, Kyle.
Go ahead. I was gonna say last season, 2 seasons ago, where Eugenio Suarez got 59, and I thought it was going to happen.
Yeah.
We all were.
Oh, did you
rooting for
really?
it
I
to
didn't realize
happen.
that.
Yeah. He had a stellar year.
I thought Pete was the last one. I thought Pete Alonso was the last one in the 50s, or maybe 49 as a rookie.
I think he was at 49 as a rookie.
Yeah, I didn't realize Suarez got that close to 60.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then they traded him to the Mariners, and all of Cincinnati deserted the Reds.
Yeah.
But so 60 home runs, 128 RBIs, 318 batting average. The last person to hit the Triple Crown, still in baseball, Miguel Cabrera, which could be his final season. That's not totally known yet whether or not that's going to be the case, but it's kind of trending that way. One guy who has
he won that in 2012.
I think so. It was early.
That sounds right.
Early teens years.
So 10 years.
Yeah, can you believe that, man? But the other guy retiring this year, who said he's retiring, Albert Pujols. He's sitting a couple home runs away from 700. Is he going to get it?
I think so. Just based off looking at things, doing a little bit of research, he's been cranking off lefties. He's playing a lefty tonight with Blake Snell and the Padres. You want to see it happen again. Like as a Reds fan, you don't want to root for old Albert, but as a baseball fan, you want to see it happen. You're rooting for him so much. Like as much as you want to hate the guy for the teams he plays for, he does so much for the community. He does so much for the organization. I want to see this guy hit 700 home runs.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, he has tough pitching matchups for his final 3 out of 4 series. He's got the Dodgers, he's got the Brewers, but then he's got let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. Am I seeing this right? 6 games to finish the season against the Pirates.
Yeah.
So
a lot of
that's softball pitches right there.
Well, a lot of the end of the schedule is all messed up, I think, because of the lockout we had earlier. They had to bump the season back and get rid of the first series. And so whatever the first series of the year was supposed to be, I think they made the final series of the year. That's why the Reds are playing the Cubs 6 games in a row. Kyle, you're going to the game next Saturday, right? October 1st.
We might see Friday's game, but definitely Saturday's game.
Cool. But so we're all anti-Cardinals. That's the biggest Cubs rival. It's the biggest Reds rival. That's one thing I've learned here, Mike, since I moved here, is Reds fans don't like Cubs fans, but they dislike Cardinals fans even more. So they're like, yeah, we can.
They get the free picks. They get the free picks. It doesn't make sense. They just pump guys out every year. We're a small market team and get the free compensation picks.
And they get 3 million freaking fans every year, and they still get the Small market pick. I think he gets it. I hope he gets it. He needs to hit 2 in 15 games? Is that what it is? He's got
less than that.
He's got 14 games. It looks like he's got I didn't count last night. Okay, so he's got 13 games including tonight. Yeah. So he's got a baker's dozen to get 2 home runs. He's got 19 on the year. That should average out the way he's been hitting as of late. And I do think that a lot of people want to see him get it. So I think that the Cardinals are going to have him in the lineup. Do you think he comes back if he doesn't get it?
He has said he's not going to, that he doesn't care, whether he gets it or not. But I mean, he's got to be in the lineup. There are 8 games up with 13 left. Yeah. I mean, come on.
He doesn't feel like an accolades type of guy.
No.
He just likes playing baseball.
I hated him. But now, it's weird to just have this, soft spot for someone that for decades seemed to just destroy your team and to come up with the biggest hit whenever it was against your team.
That downward swing, and somehow the ball went rocketing up, over the fence.
The one thing I do think of every time, Mikhail, you talked about this earlier, is the movie Benchwarmers. The I am 12. That's how Pujols is. It lists him as 42, but I swear to God, that guy's 55.
There's a conspiracy theory out there that he's actually older than he claims he is to get into baseball.
Oh, for sure. He has to be.
So that's why when he came into the league,
Wasn't that the joke going around a couple weeks ago with the Little League World Series?
Yeah, that one guy, one kid.
There always is. There's always that one kid in the Little League World Series. So we touched on Aaron Judge, Albert Pujols. So the last couple of games of the season, we just talked, it's 13 games for the Cardinals. Other teams have close to 10. Others are near 15. There's a lot so they changed the way the playoffs are this year. There's 7 teams getting in rather than that 6 and then the wild card and all that. But the standings, I thought they'd be a lot closer with this new setup.
More teams trying.
Yeah, more teams trying. But we were talking about earlier, before the podcast, there's only really 1 or 2 divisions that even has a race, and the closest race is the East, the NL East.
I mean, the NL West is the first and second is separated by 21 games, and then the second and the third is separated by 11 games. I mean, most competitive,
But, I mean, to think the NL East when the Mets were up, 10 games at the beginning of August or the middle of July?
All-Star break or something like that.
Yeah. And, I mean, they still have 95 wins. Their run differential is worse than the Braves. I think the Braves actually overtake them because the Mets always Mets. But that's going to be a fun one to watch just because the Braves are doing that repeat kind of deal.
And Spencer Strider coming around for him just to add to that rotation.
Who? Did you know who he was before a couple weeks ago?
Now, I do pay attention to, for fancy's sake, that if a Braves prospect is doing well, I snag him because he has that extra little bit of value. And so I snagged him as soon as he was lighting it up in AAA. And then Kyle Wright, finally putting it all together for the Braves.
Kyle Wright, North Alabama guy, isn't he?
Yeah, he was high school actually in the same region that I went to.
And he probably struck you out, didn't he, Mike?
I'm older than him, okay?
Oh, yeah, that's right. We're all in our 30s. Yeah. That's another thing where makes you feel old. You look at some players and you're like, I was in 5th grade when you were born.
We're out of our prime already.
Oh, yeah. We've got kids. So
speak for yourself.
One thing I do want to circle back with Judge. How much money do you think he made himself this year?
Oh my gosh! What did the Yankees offer him? Maybe north of 200?
I think it was 250, and he said, "No, I'll take something else."
Yeah,
I don't know that exactly, but
yeah, has anyone ever bet on himself and done that well? Triple Crown.
I don't think anybody's bet on themselves and won a Triple Crown because the only one who did it in our lifetime is Miguel Cabrera, and before that, they didn't really have free agency.
I mean, Derek Lee was really close, man, right? Derek Lee?
In 2005, he almost did it. But almost just doesn't. Look at the Astros, man. I mean, that division, 98 wins for the Stros, 81 for Seattle. There's a 16-game spread. The only other competitive division really is the AL Central, which is trash because the White Sox are theoretically 6 games back from Cleveland because Cleveland owns the tiebreaker, and that's a different thing this year with the new expanded playoffs. Is there used to be games 163 if there was a tie. Now they're going with only head-to-head matchup.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, so there will no longer be game 163. So if there was a tie, it goes to the team who had the best head-to-head matchup against each other. And since
So those games matter more during the season.
Yeah, and the Cleveland Guardians, with their win yesterday over the White Sox, took that over. So theoretically, there's the dog. I knew it was going to happen, man.
Hey, Amy.
Amy's upstairs.
Oh,
But the only other one is the Yankees over Toronto by 5.5, and I think that they have that tiebreaker, so that's 6.5. So theoretically, there's only one divisional race because the Brewers aren't catching the Cardinals 8 back. Oh my gosh! And every other division is double digits.
Yeah, I think the White Sox should have been in first place, but old Tony La Russa just pushed them back probably 10 games of wins.
Well, he hasn't been there for the last 2 weeks, so I mean, I do think he lost them a lot. I just don't think that lineup was as good as. My word.
They had all these guys that were finally clicking. Eloy, Luis.
Well, they haven't been healthy this year either. Robert Smith's a bunch of time. Jimenez, Tim Anderson, and
Yoan Moncada's not having the same year. Andrew Vaughn isn't clicking like they wanted to.
Well, he's been their best hitter this year.
Yeah, well,
he leads the team in home runs. That's another thing. They haven't been hitting the ball out of the ballpark, and they were built to hit the ball out of the ballpark. I think they were sitting with like the 5th least amount of home runs in the league coming in. Andrew Vaughn has 17 bombs, which as a second-year player you would hope he's got more, but that leads the team. Jose Abreu's 15, Jimenez has 14, and A.J. Pollock has 13.
The Braves have 7 players with 15-plus home runs.
Right. So
and Acuna is not one of them.
Yeah, well, it's because he was hurt to start the season.
So imagine that if he wasn't, they'd have 8.
Yeah, it's insane. So we'll talk about standings because by the time we record next week, the playoffs will pretty much be set. We'll talk about the final couple games. I do want to talk about the bourbon portion of the podcast since we are a bourbon and
See you later.
Kyle is going to become useless for this section. But this past weekend was Bourbon Fest.
Doesn't it? That's a great color, though.
he took his headphones off. Is that how much you hate it? That you had to take your headphones off?
I got disconnected.
Oh, you can disconnect. We've been reaching you for your car insurance or your car warranty.
So what was the question? Sorry.
So Bourbon Fest was this past weekend. It's more from Michael. Did you see anything about Bourbon Fest this past weekend? See anything you wish you would have been able to go to? I know that they also had the big concert this weekend, Bourbon and Beyond, I believe is what it was called. So it was kicking down in Louisville this past weekend.
Yeah, why didn't we go?
Because I had to work on weekend, man. I wanted to go. And it was expensive.
I just need to get out of the house more and come to Kentucky. As I'm just scrolling through here who was at Bourbon Fest. And of course you got to bring.
I got a FaceTime from Cheryl from A Bourbon Virgins, but also another bourbon guy. Kyle, you won't know this guy, but Michael, you should know him. Another bourbon guy. He's the guy with the Fox logo. He's hilarious. If you go watch his reels, they're incredibly funny. But I was cutting the grass on Friday, and I got a FaceTime, so it just made me wish I was there even more. But the guys from Dad's Drinking Bourbon, cheers. And there's a problem with
I'm still here, Kyle, but Brandon's not.
Oh,
there he
is. Hey, we're working the kinks out. This is the first one, so there's always going to be a few kinks, but I think the first one's gone pretty well. Also, being that it's Bourbon Heritage Month, September, Kyle, I know you're new to this, but September, October, November kind of are what we call allocated bourbon season. It's when a lot of those harder to get bottles start to come out. Lately, it's been more and more throughout the year, but it seems to be
Not
September,
here.
October. Oh, yeah. Alabama's a different state when it comes to that.
You just gotta make your own.
Oh, land of moonshine over there in Tennessee and Alabama and Roll Tide. I'll tell you what, Rocket Top. I got some clear bourbon for you.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get it.
So, is there a? Oh man, the Reds over 9.5. Yeah. That's another thing we'll get into is the sports gambling edition across baseball, and probably talk.
We have so many things.
We
planned.
have so many things planned. We probably should write them down. I think Kyle has done that because that's Kyle's executive producer job. He's got the notebook. I've got a piece of paper with a note on the back. And I'm here for my personality. Is there anything that, obviously Alabama's a little different, but like, is there something you're hunting for? What one bottle that like you really want to try?
Dasani.
How's the alkaline level?
How's the alkaline?
Pretty
acidic, or is it pretty alkaline?
It's pretty alkaline. I just stick to regular old tap.
Yeah, I've had a sample of OWA, and it's probably the easiest thing to get my hands on here in Alabama, maybe of allocation, but we'll see. I've got a couple of E.H. Taylor, actually from Brandon. one of them's from Brandon.
That's how we met. That's actually literally
how we met finally in person. Yeah.
Yes, I sold him a bottle on the secondary market. No,
we traded favors for it.
Yeah.
We'll
just call it that.
We won't go any further.
So it's a little. I will say that's one of the also better things of living in Kentucky and near Ohio is I'm out of the Alabama and we'll call it hell of allocated bourbon. So allocated bourbon, Kyle. And for those who aren't really into bourbon and they're here more so for the baseball, but you're interested in bourbon maybe, allocated bourbon is really hard to get bottles or bottles that the stores only get certain amounts of that they're trying they only get at a certain amount of time or a certain amount of bottles, and they're hard to get.
They maybe get 6 at a time, where regular stuff they may get a couple cases of.
Right. Like you always see Jim Beam on the shelf. You'll always see number 7 Jack Daniels. But Weller, especially with the bourbon boom, even Buffalo Trace, which is one of the bottles behind me. And most of it is Buffalo Trace products, but you've got some Heaven and Hill products. You've got all these other products. And that's another thing. We've got all these craft distillers now that are putting out some really good stuff that I think get overshadowed by the whole craze of Buffalo Trace this, Buffalo Trace that, or Heaven Hill this. I will say I am a Heaven and Hill snob. But I was really, really looking forward to barrel bourbon or barrel craft spirits is what they go by. They just put out a new bourbon.
Oh, the Vantage?
Batch 30. Well, they just did that, but batch 33 of their bourbon, I was actually lucky enough to snag a bottle the other day. This one, the reviews I have seen on this are so incredible that I was like, you know what? If there was a bottle I'm going to drop $80 on, I figured I'd drop it out on those barrel bourbon guys because, there you go. What bat is that? 26?
This is 24. I thought it was 27. It was 24.
Okay. All right.
Aged 9 years. 113.9 proof.
So this is a 5-year bourbon, 116.6 proof. So that's 58.3% alcohol. And I believe this is distilled in Kentucky, Indiana, and Tennessee. So what they're doing with this barrel or this barrel bourbon product, Kyle, is so a majority of distilleries, they distill their own bourbon and then they barrel it and then they bottle it themselves. But other distilleries may not be able to have the capital to start out that way. Others may just not want to invest in the amount of equipment it takes to distill your own stuff. So they'll what we call source it and get their juice, as we call it, from other places. And in this case, they're getting their juice from Indiana Distillery, which is most likely over at MGP. That would be my guess. Kentucky Distillery, which could be one of several. I know that Bardstown has been a big one. Bardstown Bourbon Company. I don't know if that's exactly where this has come from. And then Tennessee, my guess would be Dickel, but they list it as Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, I'm sure we could find out more down the road. But this is supposed to be one of the best pours out there right now that I'm really excited to try.
I've seen a lot of videos of folks with that batch 33.
And all of them seem to be just killer reviews. That one dude, Ryan, he's normally very, very good about telling you his honest opinion. And, like, he doesn't swear. So when he dropped that's good, I was like, all right.
I love when he did the Southern Comfort video. It was finally like...
Or the Fireball stuff. Have you ever had Fireball at least, Michael? Oh, not Michael. Kyle?
Yes.
Yes?
I played shows. I mean, I used to drink a lot, but now not so much.
That's another thing we're going to do.
Good for you, Kyle.
Every once in a while, we may do a, Kyle, tell us what you taste. And he's probably just going to be like, booze.
It burns.
Wow, is it spicy?
Why is it spicy?
Why is it spicy? We're going to have to do a reel like that. When you give your friend who doesn't drink bourbon alcohol.
A barrel proof.
Yeah, barrel proof. Oh my God, that is exactly what we're gonna do. Yes, I know.
I'll see you at work tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to come to work. That is our first reel. Let's book it.
Okay.
But I mean, is there? I know Alabama bourbon allocation is crummy. Is there a unicorn bottle for you, Michael?
Being here in Alabama, no, I've settled down a little bit just because I'm able to get, as you see right here, samples from my neighbor that hooks me up. He has the obsession. He'll travel or spend.
That's our unofficial sponsor, by the way, Michael Fyack.
Where he hooks me up. He's fantastic about it. He's my bourbon library. I go and check out bottles. He gets something cool. I haven't busted this guy open yet. This is the new Heaven's Door Decade series.
So that's a 10-year.
This is a 10-year.
I've heard a lot of good things about it.
I've heard good things about it. He bought it and was like, I might regret it. And he said, here.
By the way, Cubs win. Cubs win.
They beat.
Cubs win. Cubs beat the Marlins 4-3.
Do you know Keegan Thompson started? He got the win.
Did he? He did. He did start. Okay, I wasn't sure if they put him out of the pen.
The last I saw, he wasn't even gonna. They would think he wasn't gonna pitch again this year.
I saw a couple days ago that they were going to bring him back, but they were talking about potentially doing more of a bullpen thing. But you were talking
Reds
about
the decade series. Yeah, Michael, great. Gets it. You see, he did a dent in it for the little time he had in it, and then passed it over to him. I'm so grateful for that neighbor behind me there.
I did get a bottle of the Vantage that's been going around, but I bought.
You did get the Vantage?
Yeah, I bought that for somebody else, a friend on Instagram. You can find her whiskey Wander. Her name's Amanda. She's pretty baller. And that's one thing I will say that I've loved about the Instagram community of bourbon community is it's so supportive. It's really cool. Everybody's so down to earth, and they're always trying to support everybody else. And if they find somebody who's looking for a certain bottle, they'll reach out. I know she was looking for that. She bought me a bottle of Journeyman. It's a distillery in Southwest Michigan. Real quick, Kyle, you may not drink, but you go to Nashville, Indiana, right? And there's a distillery out by you in Brown County, right? And that is. You can answer the question. Do you know?
Hard Truth.
Yeah.
Don't break nothing back there.
I'm not going to break nothing. Hard Truth. This is an incredible bottle as well. I get candy apple, like the sucker, the caramel sucker, like a spicy caramel and green apple sucker out of this.
Really?
So, yeah, it's
Maybe
fun.
that'll be the one I try.
Well,
I'll come to your house. That'll be our real.
Well,
I'm just
115 proof, so he's definitely going to say it's possible.
I'm surprised they still make those caramel apple pops. Those are fantastic. I need to go get some.
Oh,
of
they are
those.
so good. That's like a Halloween staple. Like you go to the pumpkin patch, you toss one of those puppies in. So no unicorn bottle, Michael. You're not going to answer that question. You can skirt around that one.
No,
Michael's
I'm scared.
pretty good at that one.
I'm scared. I've gotten to hook up too much lately. I've gotten to try some good stuff. I've got some good, as you see on top of my World Series Cubs baseball are my 3 samples I haven't broken into yet. Because every time I'm like, oh, something great happened, I did something great at work, or I'm fine, I want to celebrate a good bottle or a good pour.
Mm-hmm.
Either the kids are up late, and I'm like, I'm not going to get to enjoy it in the moment. I don't want to be watching a movie and enjoy. I want to sit on the porch and enjoy that pour.
Yeah, I hear you. That's like the best thing is like to come home and celebrate. I celebrated the new job with Michael opening.
That's right. That was fantastic.
It's up there somewhere. Oh, it's right there behind the. Yeah, I said no free ads, right? Well, here's a free ad. I'm wearing a Whiskey Weather shirt. That is by Walk-Offs and Whiskey. My handle on Instagram is Whiskey Weather, and I saw a shirt that said Whiskey Weather, so I was like, I gotta buy it. Right. No free ads, but go check them out. Walk-Offs, Whiskey and Walk-Offs. But it was the Old Forester bottle that I popped open. It was probably my biggest unicorn.
No, it was not Old Forester.
Oh, did I say?
I mean, Old Forester's not bad.
Old Forester's bomb, but Old Fitzgerald, Old Fitzgerald bottle and bond, 8-year, which again Cheryl got for me. But I guess if I had to say my biggest unicorn bottle ever would probably be WLW William LaRue Weller, the BTAC collection bottle. And yeah, I know I have a sample. Michael's got a
sample. Dude, hooking me up. I'm telling you.
We've had that for like a year.
You weren't here then anymore when he gave this to me, I'm pretty sure. Were you?
Yeah, I was, because I remember the smudge. I'm like, what the heck is that?
Oh, you thought it was something else. That's right.
Yeah. But
it's too bad.
I guess now
I would have shared it with you now, but see ya.
That's okay. We'll figure it out. But I guess we should probably wrap this up because it has been a half an hour or so. It's the first episode, so bear with us here, folks. We're still trying to get our feet underneath us. If you are still listening to the podcast, thank you. Do us a favor, subscribe. You can unsubscribe and resubscribe and unsubscribe and resubscribe. I don't know if that helps, but I've heard people on podcasts say it before. So I don't know. Maybe it will. Share your stuff. Share our stuff on social media if you can, just to help us out. I know a lot of friends out there who may just listen 1 or 2 times. Thank you to everybody.
Where all can you find us?
You can find us. That's where I was going to get to. We've got Twitter. We've got a Twitter. We've got a Facebook. It is Barrels N Barrels on Twitter. Because Twitter only allows 15 characters. Barrels and Barrels, Bourbon and Baseball podcast on Facebook. But you'll probably see us more active on Instagram. That is at Barrels_and_barrels. You can also find myself at whiskey_weather on Instagram. Michael and Kyle, can you give us your handles if you want people to follow you?
I need a separate handle. I need a separate handle for my personal account. I never post to it because I've got so. I went to a high school where we had 1,000. I had 1,000 in my class, and we just all.
Well, and Michael was going to do a shirtless whiskey page.
I thought about that, but I got to work.
Michael Burns, powered by chicken tenders. and cinnamon rolls.
I could eat that some day.
From what he tells me, you do. I look at a cinnamon roll and I gain 10 pounds.
No, I smell bourbon and I gain a pound.
But no, I am at Kyle W. Rhodes on Instagram. Our handles will be underneath our.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Our video in the edit, but
well,
yeah, follow us on there. And to tag off of Brandon, I've done social media for bands before, and this whiskey community is incredible. The likes, the comments, the shares, everything you all are doing on our Instagram and other social medias is just...
Yeah, we've got 160 followers, and we haven't done a podcast yet.
Right.
So
we're so thankful.
Yes.
So thankful, so grateful. And thank you for listening and watching the pod. As Brandon said, subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on all the other social medias. Mm-hmm. And looks like Mike's got something to share.
I was just showing Brandon has gotten really into the real action the last few weeks.
Just you wait. We have a lot of things planned.
Yes, we got a
over
ton
on the
planned.
Instagram.
Whether it's baseball park tours, which are going to be probably subsiding here because of the season coming to an end. But we're going into the playoffs, which is a big part of the baseball community. We're also going into, as I said, allocated bourbon season. It's Bourbon Heritage Month. But again, if you do watch us or listen to us, use that hashtag Barrels and Barrels or Barrels and Barrels. You can use either of them. We're going to work on Michael slamming some things on his desk here and get the get the sound and quality all ready to go. But thank you for listening. I am Brandon Spinner alongside Michael Burns and Kyle Rhodes. You've listened to the very first episode of Barrels and Barrels, a Bourbon and Baseball podcast.
Let's go.